I was playing. Dude, I can't even remember the name of it now. It was Baldur's Gate 3.
Looking forward to seeing what you make with that.
And there's a part in there where you go into the witch's tea house, and she's got this girl in there. And she's got her feeding her rotten food, and she's got her all up in a cage, like Hansel and Gretel style. And you go in there and you rescue her from the witch. But she's not grateful, because the witch told her that she would bring the girl's husband back to life who died. And so when you rescue her from the witch, she's mad at you for doing that, because she thinks the witch was going to help her bring back the deceased. And then you'll find this staff, and the staff can bring back the dead. The only problem is it'll bring him back as a zombie. And that ain't good. Be like a just old flesh rotted off the corpse, but reanimated. Not a good deal. So then if you refuse to use the cursed staff to reanimate the corpse of her dead husband, then she will also hate you for that, because she will view you as the murderer of her husband. And then she'll go run away and be grieving and angry at the world because you've ruined her life, because you took her away from the witch and you refused to bring her husband back to life. And the reality is you saved her life from the witch who was going to destroy her and her unborn child. And you saved her from the curse of having to witness her husband, who was dead,
There are none left to
come
stand
back to
against
life as a reanimated, rotten corpse. But she don't see it that way. She just hates you. And I was thinking about how sometimes you can't help people
Your tale just grows
who
in
are
the
broken,
telling.
because they have to help themselves. They have to be in a place
Good
where they're
quality there.
willing to receive help, where they're willing, absent detractors, to better themselves. And there's a lot of people who aren't willing to better themselves, and they're totally mired down in stuff that doesn't make their life better at all. But they feel like they need those things. And as long as they feel like they need those things, they'll never be able to be free from them. Then I think about stuff like how there's so many people who have these hobbies, I guess, that add an extra burden and weight of duty. Like if you want to have a brand new car and you're always going to be paying top dollar for the new car and the insurance and all that stuff, well, your life's going to be more expensive. No getting around it. Or maybe it's chasing a career, or maybe it's having pets or something like that. Like I've known people who spend hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on these animals, and they can't take a couple days and go on a vacation because they got to take care of these pets. And they'll spend the equivalent of a car payment every month on buying them premium food and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. Sure, you can have a hobby of any variety you want. But the question is, does the hobby serve you, or do you serve it? Who's the master there? You know, my boss was just telling me about how he got this car for his daughter, and he paid like $4,000 for it, and then he got this car, and then it had problems, and he started trying to work on the problems, and then that was like another $1,500 he sunk into it. Still not working very good. And then he kind of started to reach the conclusion that it was unfixable, and it was just a bad investment. So then he talked to his wife about it, and they tried to figure out what are they going to do. And they concluded that the only thing they could do is go use it as a trade-in and then buy a new car for his wife, and then give his wife's car to their daughter. So like, this is a whole complicated thing now. And so, you know, I don't know what the new car is going to cost him, right? But it's a new car, so, you know, probably 30, 40, 50, $60,000 or something. So this guy has sank $5,000 or $10,000 into trying to figure out how to give his daughter a used car, and then he failed at that. And so he concluded that the only way to fix this problem is to go and spend another probably 50 grand or something to buy his wife a car. Like, this is all kind of, I'm just kind of observing this, you know. And this dude makes pretty good money. So when you make a lot of money, then it's easy to waste a lot of money and then feel like the only way to survive is to waste even more. But then I'm thinking about myself, and, you know, I have this $1,000 car. I paid so little for it that it's basically totally disposable.
Stendar, keep me safe.
And yet
All
it
my
runs
coins
just
in my
fine.
purse.
And so I never replace it. And I walk to work, and so I don't even drive it very much. So if something went wrong with it, I could just tow it over to the shop and have them work on it, and wouldn't really be a big deal. So it kind of makes you wonder. I think to myself, how is it that I can do just fine as a grown adult person, and I have a $1,000 car that costs me nothing and causes me no trouble? But then this guy that makes good money, well, his car problems are thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars sank into this. And why is that? Probably because simple solutions aren't good enough for him. And so if you aren't willing to settle for a simple solution because good isn't good enough, it's got to be perfect, then you're always going to be chasing something, and you're always going to be making a big deal out of little things. And you're never really going to, I guess you're never really going to be happy, because the things that you think are important are actually always things that require a down payment of peace in order to have them. Now, I think for me, my life is kind of lonely sometimes, and it's not really because people reject me in their lives. I mean, it's true. Sometimes there's people I want in my life and they're not there. That's true. But more often, I just don't want people in my life. I don't want most people in my life. Most people have things that make their lives really complicated and things that make their life really negative. And then they have these hobbies and interests,
Good
which
quality there.
they expect everyone else in their life to share. You know, I'd rather sit and play a computer game than watch a ball game. And I'd rather drink tea than have a beer. So that's fine. But if you're one of those people who feels like life isn't complete unless you're cheering for your favorite team in front of a big screen TV while you drink alcoholic beverages, then, well, I guess if that's that important to you, then we'll just not be friends. We won't talk to each other. We don't even need to cross paths. Not because I'm opposed to whatever your thing is, but because it ain't my thing. And if you feel like I have to be like that in order to be part of your life, then I just won't be part of your life. And people have all this little demons that they kind of carry with them everywhere. It's that you can't be around a person without them slandering somebody else, or the only thing that they want to talk about is some political thing about how bad the world is or how bad some particular people are or something like that. Or they take pride in the suffering and downfall of others.
Never yields.
And these are all things that I don't really get anything out of, and I don't want to be part of that. I don't want my life to be defined by ignorance or hatred or unkindness or obsession with one thing at the expense of all other things. I appreciate all sorts of different things that come from many different religions and faiths and philosophies, and I don't want to be in association or in league with people who feel like you have to just pick one particular thing and then you have to believe in it religiously and you have to make everything else anathema and write it all off as evil. I want to be able to see good in the world through all different lenses, and I want to be able to live a simple life and not worry about whether I'm impressing people or not. I want to be able to do things that I enjoy with my time, even if those are not things that everyone else wants to do or share. And then I think about how even simple things like wanting to go for a walk around the neighborhood and just enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning. You know, if I was in a relationship with somebody and then suddenly it's an imposition because they don't want to go for a walk, and then if I want to spend my time and do that, then it's stupid. And well, you know, then it just starts to be a thing where you feel like people are just so controlling and they have their own things, their agendas that they want, and they try to control you and they try to make you an extension of who they are until you don't have any opportunity anymore to know who you are. So when you add all that together, that's where I guess I have high standards when it comes to the kind of people I want in my life. And that doesn't mean that they're unreasonable standards, because I think to be basically pragmatic, to be accepting of different points of view, to keep your word, but also be true to yourself,
Another fine
to have
pack.
a sense of peace in your life, to not have problems. You know, I can't tell you how often there's people where every time I talk to them, say, how's it going? Well, they're going to just bring to bear all of the terrible, terrible things that are going on in their life right now. Their life is just this huge list of bad things. And everything is a problem. They just always have so many problems. And that gets old, you know? I mean, like I might have things I don't like. Maybe there's stuff I want that I don't have. I mean, I'm not saying that life's always perfect to me, but I don't really have any problems. And yet other people, it seems like they have nothing but trouble. And that gets old. You know, I mean, I don't know that I really want to be in league with somebody who can't go a week without their life descending into some kind of chaos and catastrophe. And I don't want to be in league with people who are so determined to be competitive or something that suddenly my simple life that's easy and sustainable and relaxing and peaceful, the minute they're there, gets transformed into all sorts of expectations for things and all sorts of reasons to believe that things aren't good enough the way they are. And, you know, I mean, like, you spend your life by yourself, right? And then it's like that $1,000 car I have. You know, it's a $1,000 car, and I can walk to work, and I can go get anything I want, and I can drive wherever I want. And it works fine for me. But then, you know, what if I had a wife, and then suddenly, overnight, it's like flipping a switch, and now the $1,000 car is garbage, and we have to go down to the dealership and get another new car, and it's not good enough for, you know, me to have a basic car, and then she's going to have a new car too, and now we have two cars with car payments, and suddenly, you know, like, instead of thinking to myself about whether I want to pay for my Elder Scrolls Online subscription or something, you know, like my big expenses are, you know, a couple $15 a month subscriptions or something. Like, that's the biggest thing I have to worry about financially. Instead of that, then suddenly it's, you know, you got that extra $1,000 a month flowing out for something that's not even necessary. It's just something that we've all come to the conclusion we have to have because we got to keep up with the Joneses or something. You know, so you see how life can be so simple when you surrender a lot of things and you just keep to yourself, and you don't have a lot of trouble or problems that you make for yourself, and you don't let other people make a lot of trouble for you. But then you introduce other people with their drama and their trouble and their problems and their obsessions and their narrow-mindedness and all those things, and then very quickly your reservoir of peace goes away, and your life is defined by so much frustration. And it's not even your frustration, it's other people's frustration. You know, I think about the time I shared with my ex-wife, and, you know, I felt often during that period of my life like life was never good enough, and I wasn't good enough, and
Looking forward to
it
seeing what
just
you make with
seemed
that.
like we were always struggling to have the things we needed. And then the more I look back on that, the more I realize it wasn't really that we didn't have what we needed. It was that she projected this sense that life wasn't good enough. And then, therefore, it wasn't. I mean, you can't have an environment of blessings when you're surrounded by people who don't view life as a blessing. That doesn't mean it's always good to be alone. You know, I don't want to be alone forever. I always want to be alone. But during this season of my life, I am alone. And I've realized there's a lot of blessings that come from being alone. Because you have the privilege of knowing that you can do whatever you wish and be whatever you wish and believe whatever you wish. And there's that freedom of the mind. And I think that's something to hang on to. And there's relationships you could have that don't take that away from you. But I think most relationships tend to be rather parasitic, unfortunately. So I guess my conclusion is that I've sort of settled on cherishing the experience of being alone. And then I have a few, I guess, high expectations of the sort of relationships that I would want in my life. And if they come, then that's wonderful. And if they don't, then, you know, I have myself, I have my mind, I have that ability to be true to myself. What higher thing is there than the truth? The truth is the highest freedom we could ever have. I think that's important to remember, because you don't need anyone else to be connected to your own personal truth. And when you have that, then maybe there are times that are melancholy or lonely or, in that sense, difficult. But
that could be helpful.
There's also the consolation of knowing that it all balances out. There's no conflicts or incongruities or lies that you've told to yourself or other people's problems that are projected onto you. There's an awful lot of people who will try to tell you that you're not good enough, and the reason why they do that is because they don't feel like they're good enough, and misery likes company. And instead of facing their own personal demons, they'd rather get somebody else to spend their life trying to fix those things for them. And in a sense, that is itself a certain kind of manipulation. When unhappy people find contented people and then act as if it's the duty of others to somehow figure out how to make them happy and content. And, you know, to go back to the story of the girl who was rescued by the witch in the video game. You can spend all of your effort and all of your life trying to make people's life better. You can think it's your duty to make their life better. But if they continue to be, in their heart, the kind of people for whom enough is never sufficient, then in the end you're the fool, because they're going to be miserable and they're going to be self-destructive and they're going to hate you for ruining their life from their perspective. And then you'll hate yourself because you'll feel like you weren't able to do enough. And the reality is you tried to win the unwinnable battle. And so you give everything you have until there's nothing left to give. And then you get left behind. Because parasites don't ever become wholesome. They just consume until there's nothing left to consume, and then they find another host. I think we tell ourselves a lot of lies because we want to believe the best in others. We want to believe that people are good inside fundamentally, and maybe someone makes a mistake, but ultimately they're a good person. And if they just get another chance, then, things will be different. But the truth is, people don't really change, do they? Their nature doesn't really change. And you can say, well, it was just once off, just that one time. You told a lie just that once, and, I understand why you did it, and I know you wouldn't do it again. But ultimately, they're going to make the same bad decisions over and over again. And you can forgive to infinity. You can keep on forgiving, understanding, and thinking that maybe this time it's going to be different. But the truth is it won't. You do need to forgive. You gotta forgive other people. It's important. So important. That doesn't mean that you should presume that they're going to change, because they will not. If you are able to change, I suppose that's one of the greatest blessings in life. If you can change the course that you're on, say, I'm going to be different today than it was yesterday. That's huge. Because most people can't do that. Maybe there's some people who've always been able to evolve and adapt better than others. But ultimately, the only person who you have any real control over is you. You have control over your mind, over your thoughts, over your daily actions. So, I can't speak for what other people will be or will not be. But I can speak to the fact that I have a life which is ultimately good and filled with blessings, and I've resolved I won't ever allow anyone else's problems or miseries to deprive me of my own freedom of the mind or my own inner peace. That's been a hard lesson to learn. I think you can learn lessons like how to spend money in a more prudent way or something like that. You can learn those kinds of lessons easier, maybe, than things that pertain to matters of the heart, because we tend to make the same allowances over and over again because we don't really want to write people off. We don't want to give up on faith in the human condition.
What do you say to some celebratory sweets?
Maybe it's easier to learn how to forgive other people than it is to learn to come to terms with the fact that no matter how much you forgive them, people aren't necessarily going to change. It's in our nature to be social creatures. But sometimes you can be good company for yourself if you stop
Another
and
find
listen.
for your pack.
I do think one of the keys to having the right sort of relationships in
Friend
your
battle
life
we can
is
walk away from, eh?
learning how to love your own life first and foremost, not for the sake of anyone else, just out of pure and entire respect for yourself. And when you learn to value your own life and to hold your head up high no matter what's going on, other people tend to be attracted to that, I think. The right sort of people tend to be. A lot of times, I really do believe that good things come to people who stop looking so hard for them. When you're desperate for something, then you go out of your way for all the wrong sorts of things, I believe. So, you stop and smell the roses and enjoy life and trust that all things work together for good. But don't try to win unwinnable battles. Don't try to save people from themselves. Because ultimately, the only human nature that we can do anything about is our own. Strive to be happy. Always strive to have peace in your life, first and above all. Don't ever let anyone else take that away from you. Hang on to that first. Be true to yourself. No matter how much you're tempted to give up a part of yourself for the sake of others, always remember in the end, you are not assured anything other than the content of your own mind and heart. So take care of yourself first. You can't help other people if you are spiritually destitute yourself. As always, wherever you find yourself, good luck on your adventure. Till next time. Thanks for watching.